You're listening to Ep.9 of the Fearless English podcast. Welcome to the Fearless English podcast, where it's all about helping you confidently communicate with anyone without compromising who you are. Let's get started, fearless learner.
Well, here we go. That's fine. So we're recording it. So, all right. So I'll start. So I'm from the US, and I have a sort of wending career path. I started as a musician when I was young, 15. I started playing professionally, and then I switched to business. I did some business, had a few businesses. In the States, it's sort of you can sort of start over quite easily.
Yeah.
It's very, it used to be very bureaucratic light, but now it's still pretty open. And then I hit upon history, and I got really interested in the academic world and life and reading. And so that I was fortunate enough to get offers at Oxford and Cambridge. I studied the master's at Cambridge, a PhD in Oxford. DPhil is what they call it in Oxford, under some really phenomenal tutors. I'm very, very fortunate. And from there, I moved to Poland to teach. I was always involved in English, obviously, because everything you're doing and communicating is in English. And willy-nilly, I was roped into teaching, and I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and maybe you have a slightly different perspective because you had to learn English at 9.
Yeah.
I grew up with it, so it's harder to explain things. So I actually had to study my own language. So this was a little bit interesting. But for me, it was very valuable. And I've been teaching writing a lot, and I'm a writer. So
Amazing.
I have come to grips. I see, I guess, the language from several different perspectives. And I think the writing, honestly, more than anything else, but also teaching writing and teaching history, because I do a lot of history and politics and religion, in addition to just generic English subjects. So I think this sort of interdisciplinary approach to the language has allowed me to sort of look at it from different perspectives, perhaps tease out some things that maybe language teachers might not be able to do. And I've tried to use that to my advantage on Instagram, and now I'm going full-time on YouTube. We'll see if it's successful.
Amazing. Congratulations on that.
Well, we'll see. We're going to produce a video a day and see if people find it interesting, but it will certainly be novel. That I can guarantee. But whether it's interesting or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, that's even hard for me to absorb, because you've just kind of gone through so much. Like, you've studied a lot, and you've been, I think, Poland, and then you went to Russia, right?
Yeah, I'm actually in both universities still. I'm a professor in both universities, but because of COVID, I haven't had to travel.
Oh, I see.
I've been very fortunate. But after COVID, if COVID ever finishes, I will then have to travel a bit. At the moment, I'm in Moscow.
Oh, wow.
I'm still teaching in Poland. We still have meetings, and I'm very active in Poland. So it's a very busy life at the moment. And I've got I want to just say one thing, because I'm just so proud of it. And I just love it. I was asked by Cambridge University Press to contribute to they're doing a history of the papacy. It's a Catholic religion.
Yeah.
But they've asked me to contribute the chapter on the 19th century, which is sort of a dream come true for me, to be sort of recognized as one of the top scholars in that area. So I'm just chuffed. The only problem is I have no access to libraries, because if I go to England to the British Library, I have to wait 10 days in quarantine. So it's a quagmire at the moment.
And I'll go for you and deliver.
Oh, you're high five for that.
Oh my goodness, that's like a big, big achievement.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. I'm also really nervous now because I don't have any books. So I'm actually contemplating going to the US for a bit, and using books and visiting my parents and using the libraries there.
You wouldn't have access to it online,
Well, some things, but sadly, the real, the expert sort of specialist studies are in Italian or French and a few in German, and they are not online.
That is crazy. It sounds like a
You can't
lot of
even buy
work.
them. You can't even buy them. They're out of print.
Oh, I
So
see.
it's, yeah, Amazon doesn't hold these things. They're not that popular, to be honest.
Not yet.
Well,
Yeah.
not ever probably, but hopefully my chapter will be a little bit interesting. But anyway, it's just speaking about experiences. We all have different experiences. I wouldn't call mine any richer than, for example, yours. What you've lived through and experienced, I've never had to,
Yeah.
live through. So I wouldn't say that I have a richer experience in that sense.
The reason why I asked you about your story and to tell me about yours is because I feel like that's how we connect with people. Everybody has their own sort of movie that they've gone through. And it's just, for me, it's just fascinating to know what you've been through, what you've achieved. And yeah, like I think it's great what, like, all the things that you've managed to do on your own. And now you have something incredible to celebrate. Well, like, how are you going to, have you celebrated, or how are you going to celebrate this achievement?
I haven't finished the chapter, so there's no celebration. And yeah, just a lot of work ahead. I've been very fortunate because my university in Moscow and hopefully the one in Poland.
Yeah. So today's topic is about speaking partners. And
Mhm.
the reason chose this topic to talk to you about is because I know that you post about it a lot. You post guidance, you post, like, you give students the opportunity to find other speaking partners. So I wanted to ask you some questions so that
Mhm.
by the end of this podcast, students will be able to say, I know exactly what to do. I know when I'm ready to find a speaking partner. And then when I found a speaking partner, I know exactly what to focus on.
Very good. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first question I want to ask you is, why do you think regular conversation is a good thing for an English learner?
On the one hand, it's probably pretty obvious if you don't speak, you're not going to learn how to speak. But I think there are many intangibles and side benefits, in addition to the obvious fact that if you don't practice speaking, you won't improve it. And that deals with a few of the themes that interest your academy, I might add. I think, for example, confidence. When you speak a lot, you speak regularly, a few things happen. One, you realize you'll survive embarrassing moments.
Yeah.
Mistakes can be overcome and dealt with
Yeah.
in their own time. And it's not a problem. It doesn't require you to stop communicating. And then you have this sort of innate understanding that you can understand other people. And this confidence, I think, is really important
Mhm.
because I think that's what holds a lot of people back. They don't want to be embarrassed about, I just don't understand what they're saying. And I think when you expose yourself to this sort of regular conversations, you start to develop this internal confidence, not only about language, I think about yourself, because you're also meeting people you don't know. Now, I have safety guidelines that I recommend where you start on Instagram, you don't reveal a lot of information. We haven't had many issues, but I think everyone has to be careful. But once you move beyond those sort of what I call requisite protocols,
Yeah.
then you enter into these interpersonal skills, which I think are really important for life. And because you're meeting people you don't know, you're having to communicate with them, and so in a foreign language, in a language you're not completely comfortable with. And I think there are just so many benefits. Now, then, of course, there's the hardcore language issues of, how do I improve? How can I, grammar, fluency, maybe pronunciation, these sorts of issues, which are all totally separate, but obviously very important.
Okay. So I want to know, what are a few important things that students need to do before they go looking for a speaking partner?
Wow, that's a very good question. Now, I have a very sort of flexible philosophy on this, but I think the one prerequisite is you need to know your level of English,
Yes.
because I think it's important to sort of match yourself with someone a little bit in your area so that both people are engaged, unless you're actually paying for a teacher. Then, of course, it's normal that there's this inequality
Yeah.
in talent and skill. But if it's a free language exchange, you want sort of a relatively close match in skills. I think that's one prerequisite. I think other things can be very helpful and insightful. And I like this question. No one's ever asked this before. One is to sort of understand your sort of strengths in the languages and your weaknesses. And why that's important from a practical standpoint is that you can also, if you have someone just as diligent as your speaking partner, you can have a very candid discussion at the beginning or outset of your exchange. And that way you can understand maybe, and the optimum is if you have a bit of a sort of a complementary set of skills, which means one of you might be better at grammar, the other one might be more open and, sort of willing to speak. That's optimal. But I think it's really important to have an assessment or an inventory, because no one, just like everyone's different, everyone has different life experiences, everyone has a different skill set in the language. It's not just your A1 and every A1 is the same, or A2 or whatever. It's that some people are more predisposed to grammar or to pronunciation. They just have a very good ear. Or sort of the intuitive aspects of language. So the more you know about your skill set,
I love that.
the more you can sort of then glean from others who might have complementary skills.
Yeah, I think you've pointed out something really important, which is know where you are, because you have to know where you are before you like target where you want to go, right? Like, so that's like a really important aspect, I think, of understanding what level you are. And okay, so for a student that wants to know like what's their level, what would be maybe a good way to understand, apart from paying, like for a teacher to give you feedback?
I have two free links I just send people. One of them is a Cambridge link, another is a British Council, and it's a free test. It's not long. The Cambridge one is 25 questions. It's not oral, so it's not perfect. It's grammar based, but it gives you a ballpark semblance. Obviously, those who study grammar and never speak, this will not be reflective of their actual abilities, but it's free, and it sort of gives you a sort of a yard marker guidance to get started. And so I send those out freely to anyone who asks. A lot of people know. I also have it in the caption under each of the exchanges where they can Google it if they're so inclined.
Yeah, so I'll add that in the caption. I mean, not in the caption, in the show notes under this podcast.
Yeah, I can send you those two links. They're readily available.
Brilliant. So like understanding what level you're at, like what are like where your strong point is. So are you really good at like idioms, or are you great at grammar, or is your pronunciation great? Whatever it is, understanding first of all what it is that you lack and what it is that you can offer the person that you're going to be speaking with. Incredible. So the next question I want to ask is a controversial one. Does the person need to be a native speaker of English?
Well, obviously, I would say no, because almost no native speakers taking part in these exchanges. And I have a few thoughts on this. Firstly, as a native speaker, I know that when I first started out sort of teaching the language, well, that's not true. I learned it before, but most native speakers who just sort of start teaching, the vast, no, of course, not everyone, but a large percentage don't know their own grammar, couldn't explain concepts, as well as those at a C1 level, C2 level, even B2 level in certain, aspects of verbs, etc. They could not explain it as well as these non-native speakers. So in that sense, there's a clear advantage not to have a native speaker. Obviously, native speakers provide you with an ease of communication. They can identify positive errors. Although there's an asterisk there as well, because what they might consider an error might be just a variant of British or South African or Australian or whatever. So anyway, but yeah, there are obvious advantages to native speakers, but I think that if you're motivated to learn, then you can learn under any condition. And if you have two people motivated to learn and you have access to Google, you can find out any answer you want. There's one other thing I want to mention, though, and I think it's a more general principle in life that I think is worth heeding, or at least remembering, is that there are very few things that we're learning in life where we have access to native speakers. That is to say, to experts. Yeah. We don't have that luxury in many areas of our life. Obviously, communication is very important. And so if we have the luxury of employing a qualified native speaker, that's optimum. I'm not going to dismiss that obvious point. Yeah. So that is clear. But a lot of people on my Instagram don't have these resources. And I'm sensitive to that, which is why I go live twice a week for free. I'm fortunate where I don't rely on this income. I have 2 university jobs. And so I'm able to provide some of this knowledge. And, it's for me a mission, a bit of a mission. I enjoy giving as good a quality of education as I'm able to people who have no access to this. And this for me is a real joy. So to return after a very wending answer, it's optimal if you can afford to pay for a qualified native speaker. But we have the wherewithal. If there's a desire, you have the wherewithal to learn with someone who has an equal desire as you to learn.
Very well explained, and I thank you so much for adding the reason why you're online as well. That's very admirable. So I want to go back to what you said about interpersonal skills, because I think that's probably the most important aspect of all this. I see it all the time. Students don't have the skill to communicate with someone and ask them, hey, do you want to be a speaking partner? Or something will happen, an awkward exchange, and they don't understand maybe the person's culture, or they don't have even the basic ability to communicate with someone on the internet, let's say. Could you talk to us about that?
So could you ask the question okay, so the question is, I was writing a few notes about what I was saying. So your question is about the interpersonal skills or the social awareness?
So both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think one of the benefits, maybe the unique benefit of my account on Instagram, it's not completely unique. There are a few others, but I have a global audience. And this means that people really do have access from India to South America, Taiwan, South Korea, all the way down to the southern tip of Africa. You have access to, or at least possibilities to talk to people from very different cultures. Now, this obviously represents an opportunity, but it also represents possible cultural misunderstandings. Now, yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity to learn. A lot of these people, not everyone, but certainly everyone during COVID, and I would say a lot of people on my Instagram in general, don't have access to travel freely, as maybe some others do. And so this sort of exchange is, I think, very important. Obviously, with the internet and these, it's closing the gap. So I'm not suggesting my language exchange is the only way to find that. to encounter that? Absolutely not. But on a free level, just where you can start practicing your English in a very easy manner, you don't have to download an app or anything. I think it's a great opportunity. There are misunderstandings. I do get feedback, and I try to sort of address these mainly on an individual basis. I don't want to, unless I feel it's a sort of widespread issue, I try to deal with it individually. And obviously we have to be sensitive. I see it every day. I get insensitive comments, and I try to adopt, and I try to teach this as well as a learning experience. Okay, why did they react in an angry manner? Why are they upset?
Yeah.
I think when you have that approach is, okay, I want to try to understand why they're angry, not get offended first, because it's easy to get offended first because we are a creature of emotions. But if we can try to adopt this sort of understanding, why were they offended or something, or angry, then this is an amazing interpersonal skill that you can apply in your own language, in your own town, in your own family. We all have these issues.
Facts, yeah.
And so, for example, on my Instagram, I have a principle that I don't get angry. I of course would like to get angry because I'm human, but I don't respond in an angry or aggressive manner to anyone. Now, I might block them if they're very aggressive or threatening, but I don't respond even. Because I don't want to engage in this negative sort of, sort of spiraling discussion. But I try to adopt, and I've learned a lot taking this principle, is you don't get angry, you don't respond angry. You can feel angry, that's normal, but you don't respond in an angry manner. And you try to understand people. And what I have understood after a year and a half of, sort of growing this, is that a lot of people are frustrated, unhappy, want more now. They want better educational opportunities, and I'm sensitive to that, and I end up sympathizing with them, even through their anger. And I think this has been probably one of the greatest interpersonal skills I've learned. So if I've learned this, then I'm suggesting other people can learn it as well when they do these language exchanges.
Yeah, because you're right. Because if you're meeting people from all over the world, there's going to be different ways of dealing with different people. And the best way to make sure that, you don't deal with something in your own way, it's just asking and being curious about, if you do annoy someone or you do say something in the wrong way, then making sure that you just clarify and you ask questions and you learn from the situation, rather than, just assuming, getting angry, and then reacting when you do get angry.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So the next question is, once you do find a speaking partner and you've connected with someone, and you have the right level, the last thing I want to talk about is, how do you have I guess like a speaking partner and meet up with them and also have a structure in the meeting?
Yeah. Okay, this is good. And I have to tell you, I'm going to make a confessions right up front, is that I think I need to teach more about structure within the language exchange. I have 2 posts on structure, we send it out all the time, giving guidance on what to do. I found a partner, now what? Or I have a group, now how do I lead them? So we have these sort of guidelines on how to structure, but I think I need to talk about it more. My general advice is very straightforward and traditional. I don't think 2 language partners should divide. A language exchange should sort of put the onus on them to sort of devise a very intricate, elaborate curriculum. I would go through a language book that you both share I
Okay.
mean, because that's very structured. You can pick themes on BBC. I mean, so what we normally do is suggest is that there are so many different topics on BBC: travel, culture, geography, astronomy, sort of science and technology, so many different topics. Pick a different topic each time, look up the words you didn't know and those you have to talk about in the chat. And then each of you have 3 questions that you devise. One is fact-based. Another requires some sort of analysis. So you have to sort of synthesize what you've read. And the third one could be more argumentative, not that you're arguing, but that you
Yeah.
try to make a
Debating,
point.
like, yeah.
And so 3 types of questions, and vary the topics and run that way. But I realize as you've asked that question, I need to do a better job of promoting that structure within the exchange.
Yeah, because a lot of students are like, a lot of the focus is, how do I find a speaking partner? How do I, like, get on a call with someone? And then once they do, they obviously they're going to talk about, where they're from or what they do, and then the conversation ends there. And I think it just kills the idea of speaking partner, and it like it doesn't continue. So its shelf life is around, I would say, a month or 2 at most, and then after that it dies. But I think if they had some sort of structure, it could continue for like years if it's done properly. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. And thank you for that question. It's good. It sort of prodded me to make a video on that very topic.
Amazing.
Very,
Send it to
very
me and I'll
important.
share it with my
Thank
people
you.
as well,
Thank
because
you.
I think it is important. So I've asked you all of the questions that I have today, but is there anything else that I haven't covered that you would like to talk about a little bit more when it comes to speaking partners?
Well, I might just offer this. If you have a bad experience or an unfruitful experience with this language partner, don't let that spoil the concept, because the
Yeah.
concept is in the main and at base very positive, and I think can be very beneficial, especially because it's something that doesn't cost any money and requires just a bit of motivation and linguistic curiosity. So my suggestion, because I get a lot of people writing saying that haven't found anyone, or they found people that aren't serious, or they found strange people. So my advice is that this is a microcosm of life. If you go to work, you're going to encounter the same sorts of issues. If you go anywhere in life, any organization you're a part of, you're going to have to deal with this. And so I'm always trying to teach. That's the second principle on my Instagram, is always be teaching. So I try to show the bigger picture, that this is no different than life, and that what we have to do is just, if it's important, then you just keep looking till you find someone that matches your skill. Now, I suggest to people, change your search engine sort of criteria. So instead of just saying B1, level looking for a partner, maybe you're a bit more specific. B1, this age level. B1, this gender. B1, I want to work on these subjects. So when you tighten the criteria, the search criteria, that will improve the hits or the opportunities. There'll be fewer, but there'll be more quality. And so I just try to always teach, be teaching these things, because I think it's not just in the language exchange issue. If that's the mentality in the language exchange, my experience as a teacher suggests that probably is their thinking in other areas of life, and that's not maybe the most successful way to think about it.
I love the answer. Like, that was so good. Like, I mean, that's like enough for everybody just to walk away and feel like, okay, I can give it another try, even if you fail the first time, the second time. And the more I know the type of person I'm looking for, the more successful the partner, the speaking partner, like collaboration is going to be. I love the fact that you said like really narrow down, maybe get a piece of paper, write down all your criteria, your time zone,
Mhm.
gender, and then like
Absolutely.
you'll know exactly who you're looking for when you look.
Exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Now we're going to go into the less serious parts of the podcast, which I'm just going to ask you random questions. Like,
Okay.
for example, what is your favorite English word?
Oh, wow.
Have you
Well,
thought
as
about that?
as it happens, I've just done a short video on those, and I have a few, but one of them is ignominious. Ignominious is
I love that.
it's a rather negative term because it deals with disgrace and public shame. But for me, I love the word because I like how it sounds as I say it, it like rolls off my tongue. And
Yeah.
so words that sort of mellifluous is another word that I find very pleasant. Um, but ignominious is just the way it sounds when I say it. It's just so I want to laugh every time, even though it has negative sort of connotations.
That's funny because when I hear you say it, I'm like, oh my God, what a lovely word. I really like it. I didn't
Yeah,
even know the meaning until you told me, but
yeah.
it just sounds amazing to say. It's like
Yeah, it
my
does.
favorite
And
word.
yeah, it's exactly. And I feel really, I don't know, I love saying this word. And I tell you, in my history lectures, I managed to squeeze it in a few times during the semester.
It's like, why are you saying that? It's so random. But you
Yeah.
say it
No, but
anyway.
it's very common in historical context, which is how I
Ah,
introduce it. So you have an ignominious defeat, which is you
mm,
lose in a very disgraceful,
I
shameful
see.
way. So, for example, Napoleon had a very ignominious end to his life because he died alone on an island. So this is it's a very common, very useful historical term, but it's one that obviously in normal parlance and
Yeah.
conversation you won't be using all that
I'm
often.
gonna start using it just because it sounds amazing. Yeah. So the next question is, are you learning any languages?
Well, I'm attempting to get my head around, if I can borrow a British phrase. I'm trying to get my head around Russian at the moment. But as a historian, I'm required to sort of read and speak in most of the main European languages, Turkish accepted. But I've learned most of the others. But Russian's the one I'm dealing with at the moment. Listening a lot of Russian.
So, what languages do you know how to speak?
Italian, Spanish, German, Polish. I read French all the time, and Russian now is
That is
it's getting under
so,
control.
oh my God, that's amazing.
No, no, no,
Multilingual.
it's not. I'm not a linguist. If you heard me, you would say, Chris, that's not amazing because I don't have great accents. I'm not blessed with a great ear, but I'm improving, but I need to read in them. So I'm pretty good in Scrabble in all of these languages because I read lots of words that most people will never utter in conversation.
That's so cool that like you've learned so, but you're able to communicate with people, and that's the most important, aspect of learning languages. So that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. And the last part is like, how would you define a fearless English learner?
Oh, wow. Fearless is the operative word here, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think the clue to the answer is in the question, because if you're fearless, that means you're not afraid of making mistakes, and you're not afraid of being uncomfortable. You're not afraid of trying new things, putting yourself in new situations or circumstances, learning new things. I think that encapsulates that very important adjective that you've mentioned, fearless. And so I'll just sort of work on that, and I would answer it in that manner.
Amazing. Thank you so much for answering that. That was so cool to hear your like idea about fearlessness. Um and today has been amazing. Thank you for coming on this podcast and sharing your knowledge. with us.
Well, it's a real pleasure, and it's a pleasure to meet you. And I want to just say, Halima, that I'm super proud to meet you, and very proud of your mission, your institute, and what you're striving to do, and helping people in your community, and probably everywhere, given that it might be online. So I hope that this cooperation continues. So it's a real pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me on.
No, you're welcome. Absolutely. Thank you for saying such nice things. I really appreciate it. It made me feel all emotional. Yeah, thank you. And of course, I hope to have you back in the I hope to interview again about another English topic, because we've learned so much from this one. So yeah,
My
thank
pleasure.
you, Chris.
All right. Well, have a good evening. Thank you.
Hello, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Female Language Academy. It's my monthly membership for women where I provide lessons to help students develop their English fluency. All you have to do is go to www.blackboardenglish.com/FLA. That's www.blackboardenglish.com/FLA. See you in class.